All right, so we're back in Total War Warhammer 2, and I had a good multiplayer game here just on the ladder, which is like quick play with a random stranger. And I thought this one was good because it kind of showcases some of the micromanagement as well as the macro management that goes into multiplayer. Um, so macro management in most strategy games is kind of the overarching economy. An example would be like League of Legends, where you're buying items, your team's generating gold, you're farming minions, and that's kind of adapting the overall map presence and how well your team is doing as a whole. Um, Total War doesn't really have an economy in the multiplayer, aside from the initial kind of buying of the troops before the game starts. So the macro in Total War really comes down to kind of how you control the overall battlefield. A big part of that is the leadership. So I briefly mentioned it before, but every unit has their health and their leadership, and if that leadership drops, which can happen through losing a battle or getting charged from behind or surrounded or shot at, there's plenty of things that kind of go into it. But when that leadership drops, it causes that unit to run away. And what happens when it runs away is the player can no longer control it. And when it runs away, either you chase it away, as in like if I were to get these orcs to rout, I could send kind of some horsemen after them and chase them off the field, and then when they cross this line, they're out, they're gone for good. Or if there's no pressure, they usually kind of run away and retreat, and then they get their leadership back and they rally, and then it's up to that player to pull them back into the battle and keep using them. So really, you're kind of managing that, trying to keep all your units engaged and active, and you're trying to keep yours from running away or getting driven off the battlefield. At the same time, it's about staying on top of your opponent, and then you kind of want to route their units, and then they lose control, and then that allows you to either chase them and get rid of them, or just kind of take advantage in other areas and disorient them. And the way that you do that is through effective micromanagement. So micromanagement in Total War kind of consists of how you're actually moving your individual units to kind of take on minor engagements, facilitate fighting in a way that benefits you versus benefiting your opponent. And then a lot of it is when it comes down to these characters, they each have their own abilities and spells and such that you are kind of controlling and aiming with your mouse and trying to really kind of influence combat in that way on a micro level. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the macro and the micro. Those are kind of the two things you're going to be focused on as a player during a battle, and I kind of want to just give an intro to that and give a little more explanation of how those two things interact in the overall gameplay. So with that being said, we can get a little bit of the armies for this battle. I'm playing as Norska, which is a fairly one-dimensional rush faction. They're basically Vikings. They have this infantry marauders, which I had used in my previous matchup with the vampire counts. Um, so they have, I came packed with just a strong infantry line, and this is going to be a rush down game. I'm trying to get in there. I'm trying to get on top of them, and I'm trying to grind their infantry down, and then kind of get into their goodies with my infantry being, archers and stuff like that. That my infantry is just going to clean up. The Marauders are fairly typical shield infantry. They can take some damage with the shields. They can take range fire, and they're just going to kind of hold the line. And then I have a second kind of reserve line here of these berserkers. Now these guys are kind of dual axe infantry. They're not very well protected. They'll get torn up by range fire, but they do have a mechanic. Yeah, this berserk ability. So this kind of goes through different stages the longer they are in combat, which basically causes these guys to get better and stronger, and even actually more resistant to damage the longer they're in prolonged melee combat. So these are kind of a meat grinder. I just want to get them in there, stick them in, and then let them do their work. And if they can get in the back line, they really will just blend through kind of smaller and weaker infantry. These guys are supplemented by, I do have one ranged units of javelins, just in case the enemy brings anything big. These guys are like, monster hunters, right? So any large unprotected units will just get torn up by these javelins from afar, but I do have to protect them and keep them safe. I've got these guys, the Mistwalkers, or Miststalkers rather. They're femur warriors. They're kind of these monstrous infantry units that you mix in with your own front line. The idea here is they have this special mechanic, armor sundering, meaning when they hit a unit that's heavily armored, they actually reduce its armor for a brief period of time, and that allows other weaker units to kind of get in and do more damage to whoever these guys are fighting. Um, I've got 2 units of skin wolves, which are these guys are anti-large, so they really are good at chasing down cavalry, large monsters, things like that. They're fast, they're mobile, and I believe, yeah, they do regenerate their health as well. So you can kind of strike them in, pull them out, and they'll keep regenerating and they'll keep alive kind of long through the battle. They're good for chasing as well. And then I've got fairly typical for my playstyle. I've got a couple of skirmisher cav. We've seen these guys before, but they're going to chase guys down and pelt them with spears and just kind of harass, do some damage and kite, and then they can also chase units off the field as well, which is really useful if you can do that effectively. Finally, I do have my legendary lord, which is Wulfric the Wanderer, atop his mighty mammoth mount. Um, and he is a duelist as a character. That's kind of his main trait. He has an ability that allows you to kind of lock down another character, and it kind of gives him a big debuff. So you fight him in a 1v1 and you typically win. He's also got a spell that summons like a long ship, which is just a big area of effect damage spell, which will definitely be shown off in this matchup. And then he's also got the mammoth itself, which is an anti-infantry kind of mulching machine. So if you put him in a stack, he's going to be just tearing through. He's just a big old melee fighter with a couple of support abilities as well. Finally, we've got a separate caster. So this guy, typically casters in this game are pretty weak and squishy. They're not really usually melee focused. You want to keep him out of trouble. But he's a fire wizard, so he's got 2 spells. One is a buff for allied troops, and then he's also got the flaming head, which we've seen before. It's just like a giant flaming bowling ball that's gonna cut through anything it touches. To go over to my opponent here, he's playing as the Greenskins, which is also definitely, I would consider, a melee rushdown faction. He's got these really strong orc infantry that are going to go toe-to-toe fairly well with my marauders. And he's got a lot of them. So I would split his build up into kind of 2 sections, right? So he's got this big front line here, which he's going to kind of get in there and try to overwhelm me. And he's bolstered it really kind of hugely on this right side, where he's got some heavier, orc biggins. They're kind of bigger, they hit harder. And then he's got these trolls mixed in as well, these stone trolls. And they're really damage resistant as well as they are big damage dealers, especially armor piercing. They're if you can keep them safe and keep them mixed in, and they don't just get chipped down with archer fire or routed with their relatively low leadership, they're going to do a lot of damage. So he's playing to kind of meet lines, and then he has this huge hammer here that's going to push through and kind of just win this side of the battle, and then he can kind of have his way with the map control and kind of run over me. He has a little bit of cav up here, which really these guys are good for chasing, harassing. I didn't really bring a lot of ranged units. If I had ranged units, he could harass them with these. But these guys are mostly going to be good at just chasing and catching out random units that need them, and they're just fast and mobile and kind of allow you a lot of flexibility. And then he's got this other kind of reserve section of his army, which is archers. He's got the goblin, the Doomdiver catapults over here, which this is actually, let's see if I can find him. One of these goblins actually like wears these little wings. Yeah. And they put him in this and they launch him like a catapult and then he explodes. So it's an artillery piece. And the purpose this is going to serve is it does damage to me if I'm far away. So it forces me to come in and kind of initiate combat, which I'm fine with because I have a rushdown army. And he also does have a couple of goblin archers back here, as well as just some cheap little goblin defensive forces. I mean, these guys can't do much, especially against my berserkers. They're going to get ripped to shreds if I get in there. But it's something to just kind of hold the line against his ranged utility piece here. And then he does have a goblin big boss hero. He's a really good like little assassin of characters, and he's got his little wolf, so he's pretty fast and mobile. He can get in there and really cause some damage. But yeah, typically he'll probably be trying to pick out my mage with him, or just put him in the mix and kind of buff the leadership of any allies when he's in a melee grind. And then finally for his legendary lord, he has Wurzag, the Great Green Prophet. He kind of dances around. He's a caster as well. Primarily, he does have a little melee capability, but primarily a caster. And the 2 spells he's going to be bringing to the table today are Brainbuster, which is like just a small AoE, but it does a lot of damage to single characters. So he'll probably be trying to use that on Wulfric. And then he's also got the Foot of Gork, which we'll see that in action, but it's a big AoE. It's a very flashy spell when he does use it. All right, so with that being said, let's get ready to get into the combat. All right, so to kick things off, since we're each playing a melee rush army, I mean, we're really just gonna start the hard march to clash those lines. I do kind of start to observe his troops after just spawning in. I see he has the Doom Diver in the back, and the army's moving up. I kind of see this opportunity, and that's where I'm sending my Marauder Horsemen. I just want to get them around the back and kind of start harassing. What I'm a little less observant of is that this side of the army is yoked, and that's going to be a bit of a clash. So I'm kind of marching in. I mean, I have fair resource allocation over here. I have the Skinwolves pulling around to maybe fuck with these trolls a little bit. That's a perfect target for them. But yeah, here we go. The lines start to meet shortly. The charge goes off, and we're both rushing in here. Now, here's interesting. This looks like he actually did not get his charge, which is good. That gives me a big bonus. But the trolls are coming in. And as I bring in my Femir warriors to kind of sunder their armor and give them some mass to fight up against, this part of the battle becomes what we officially call in the business a monster mash. It was a graveyard smash, caught on in a flash, and we do have some orcs coming in the back. You see he casted a spell there. It did fair damage, but honestly got a bit more of his troops than mine. So it was a slight mishap on his part. I'm bringing Wolfric in to try to bring up the rear. He would really excel in this big flop situation, but you do see this is Wolfric setting up the long ship. But that is a great cast. Look at those blood and guts, and you can just see those health bars collapse. Otherwise, this is a very bad situation for me, so that was really kind of a huge save. And you can see now he is launching his goblins in from the Doom Diver. That being said, I'm starting to pull my troops around the back, and we're exchanging a bit of range fire here. So I'm trying to kite. I realize I'm taking some damage, and I pull them out. Otherwise, things are going all right. He's getting his skirmish cap. I didn't even see them. These guys are toast. These javelins, honestly, I just looked back later and realized they were gone. But yeah, he's got his skirmishers all over me, and he does pop the Wah ability. So that that green kind of foam there, that's a huge map-wide buff that the greenskins periodically get, and it gives them huge boosts in melee. So that really hurt. You can see it kind of won him this engagement. I still have my Skinwolves in there, but my infantry just got eviscerated, and he finishes it off with the big foot of Gork right on top of my berserkers, and that hurts. You may have seen I did get a fireball in there that also did decent work, but it did not save me. So Wolfric's in here mashing. I mean, this is an okay situation for him, but it's not going to last forever, right? He does have a lot of men. He's got the mammoth smashing, but I need backup. Luckily, I kind of have a lot of my troops that were driven out of the previous battle there are kind of starting to gather in the woods, as well as my Balefiend. Honestly, I should be moving them in at that point, but you'll see that they do come in shortly and give Big Papa Wolf some support. Though the greenskins are throwing down some spells. Honestly, again, they kind of hit themselves. In the back line, things are going a little better for me. I am kind of in the honeypot back here with my Marauders. I did manage to get their Doom Diver to rout with my Horsemen, and I'm also chasing down these Archers as well. So that's kind of a minor victory for me in the back, while the frontline engagement is maybe not going so much in my favor. That being said, I do get my Mist Stalkers and my Warriors and all that good stuff in here. They're surrounding the Goblin Big Boss, kind of bringing him down, as is my Balefiend of Fire. So the Goblin Big Boss is not in great shape, and Wolfric is 100% going to win this fight against Wurzag here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, he's a duelist, and he has this ability that basically is just a huge debuff to single entity units. So you don't want to go one-on-one against him, and Wurzag learned that lesson pretty quick. So he is routing. I'm trying to stay on top of him with some infantry to kind of square him off the battlefield, but I will need to bring in some better stuff if I really want to scare him off so he won't come back. That being said, the greenskins are kind of resurging a little bit in the front lines. They managed to keep their archers up here. This archer's in a little worse shape, but they've won this infantry fight fairly well. I didn't utilize my berserkers as well as I should have, and they're kind of getting pushed back here, especially with this range support. Now they're bringing in the cavalry. It's not looking good for me in this part of the map, but you can see overall the balance of power is starting to turn in my favor. I've got some more guys kind of escorting our friend Wurzag off the battlefield here. And I believe shortly, yeah, I do kind of bring these skirmishers down to take care of him once and for all. I do get another longship across these archers doing some fair damage. I'm chasing them off a bit in the back and just hoping to rout these units and get rid of them completely. But you can see my Balefiend is not in a great situation. These are just goblins, but the big boys are coming in, right? And as I mentioned earlier, he's not a great melee fighter. I'm bringing in his cousins over here, the Mist Stalkers, to try to lend a hand, but he manages to bog them down pretty effectively with the Wolf Riders. So tough situation for him. He's pretty much surrounded, and you can see his health is dropping rapidly.
I don't really want to lose him because that's a big loss to my morale if I lose a character like that. Speaking of which, Wolfric is starting to get in big trouble. He's just kind of, been slowly dragged down by all these big creatures around him, and these trolls are really just starting to kind of do their role and punish him, and then the big boss comes in to kind of just lay the killing blow here. I noticed too late, I don't pull him back in time, and then I do have a nice burning head, but Wolfric is toast. He's going down. So it's a situation where I was microing over here to kind of preserve my own Balefiend, but big man himself was lost. I did get some Marauders in, but it's just too little too late. They're not going to be able to kind of stop this monster party that this guy's got going on my part of the map. Otherwise, skirmishers are actually doing well. You can see, so this is a good example of macro play, right? He's got all these units that are routing and running away. I'm chasing Wurzak down with my skirmishers. I'm getting these guys to rout and chasing them. So he can't control any of these, and these ones are right on the border. So like, just by boxing them out and staying on top of them and following them, if you were able to rally all these troops and just swing them in at once, I would get crushed. But the fact that I'm on top of them like that, really kind of maintains that map control in my favor. Even when I'm losing all these engagements, I mean, I'm spread pretty thin as well. You can see I don't have too much on the field. It's healthy, but I am just staying on top. I'm getting Wurzak down, so he's as well now lost his legendary lord. I think I'm actually able to kill him with these skin wolves. Yep, looks like he's going to go down. The wolves have their feast on Mr. Piggy himself, and then I'm able to kind of even things out for the leadership loss I have earlier. And you can tell the balance of power is starting to kind of favor me as well. The Balefiend is back in a shitty situation. I've just been having so much trouble keeping this guy safe. His Femir brethren are just fighting to the last man, sundering these trolls, and looks like they actually managed to scare him off, but he's got another kind of line of orcs coming right in the back, and all my other forces are more or less committed to trying to chase, except my skin wolves here, which I was able to effectively pull in. Pretty sure I see how bad the situation is and switch them around pretty soon. But here's where I'm going to kind of talk myself up a bit about micro. This is a good example of where this game turns to micromanagement now. Now he's down, he's about to lose. He casts a self buff on himself, and then that's going to give him big melee defense boosts. And now he's going to be able to scoot out of there. That melee defense kind of prevents him from being hit. So he's taking less damage, and that they're less able to get a hold on him as well. He's a little slipperier. So right now I'm fully committed to just this micro right here. Everything else, they're being chased off. So I get the burning head, duck out of the way, and then boom. You can see he turns his guys around and runs. Honestly, if he had just kept going, that didn't do that much damage, but he kind of spooked off, and that allows my Balefiend to scoot away unharmed. And really that could have turned the game around, but I got the horses coming in. I mean, he's in big trouble. If he had assassinated my wizard like that successfully, it might have had enough of a morale effect to kind of rout the rest of my guys, but as is, I mean, I've just kind of picked him apart a bit. I've chased all his units off fairly effectively and stuck with it well. And as a result, he's only got this little core of infantry left. And when you have this few troops, their morale gets really kind of flashy. Like it's not going to take much to tilt these guys into running away and breaking and never coming back. So we got one last glorious charge with the skin wolves here, just cutting a path through these orcs, and you can see like pretty quick they're gonna turn tail and flee from that, and that is GG. So yeah, I just want to show you that one because I thought it was kind of a good showcase of some cool mechanics, and I'm gonna have plenty more, so I'll definitely post them as they come. See ya.